I'm Ken and Profit, and welcome to a very special visual effects tutorial. This tutorial we're going to be focusing on the bullet hits that you saw in that example. We're going to be using some of ActionVFX's stock footage to composite these really awesome bullet hits into our scene. So for the sake of time and simplicity, I'm really just going to be worried about three particular hits, and you can take this information and hopefully add it to your scenes and add multiple bullet hits and just kind of run with it and make it your own. So I have my footage inside of After Effects, and this is the example clip that we're going to be using, and this is me, and you can see I'm just pretending to dodge some imaginary bullets and maybe some debris that's hitting that back wall and falling down kind of behind me. Really, the sky's the limit. Whatever your imagination, we can put it in. So the first thing, before we add any bullet holes or bullet hits, we're going to have to track our scene. So I'm going to right click, select this footage, and track camera. So now that we have our footage tracked, we can start laying in some of the elements. But first of all, I want to create two nulls here, one for the ground and one for this wall here. And that'll just help us to have something to track the markers to, or to track our footage to. So I'm going to grab one of these markers down here, just select this one and create null and camera. And then I'm going to select that null, press enter, and name this ground null. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the top, or for the wall here. So I'm going to select my footage again, select that camera tracker to bring back our marks, and I'll just grab this one right here, oops, and right click it, create null, and we'll name this wall null. And now we can start laying in our footage. So first of all, what I want to do is find kind of the area where I want the first bullet hole to start. And we can hide these nulls, we don't actually need to see them. And I think as soon as I run on screen here, it should be around about here. After Effects is kind of lagging because I'm recording at the same time. So I kind of want to hold it, kind of hit right here at the ground and shoot up some debris. So what I'm going to do is load in each of my bullet hits that I've downloaded from ActionVFX. And I highly recommend getting your hands on some of these. It's just really awesome footage here. It's these bullet hits, BH1. I just got the 2K version just to kind of help things go quicker. There is the option of 4K, I believe, so you can definitely check those out as well. Now, these are really cool. If I just play one here, I can show you what it looks like. We bring it in, if we play, you can see it's just a nice burst of debris, and everything kind of lands on a ground plane, so we have a base to work from, which is really, really awesome. So I'm going to get rid of that. Now, before we actually add in this sort of explosion of debris, I want there to be a hole for the actual bullet, kind of a reference point. So what we can do is use some of the ActionVFX textures, the bullet hole textures, which are free, I believe, from their website. So there's just these ActionVFX hole textures. So I'm going to open that folder, and we can take a look, and there's just really everything you would need for any different type of material that you would want to go shoot up. So here you see we have asphalt, concrete, drywall, glass, metal, and wood. So I'm going to go into the concrete folder and pick out, you can see what they look like here. I'm going to pick out one of these. Just kind of, that one looks good right there. So I'm going to grab that one, and I'm going to drag it and drop it into our scene. And now I'm just going to convert this to a 3D layer and then parent it to the ground null. And I'm going to push this in 3D space, grabbing the Z axis, holding in shift, and I'm going to put it here on the ground. And because it's a 3D layer, we can rotate this to make it fit our perspective. So obviously our ground plane isn't the same perspective as this bullet hole. So I'm going to grab the rotate tool, and we're going to rotate along the x-axis to get it kind of flat, even with the ground. And you can come in here to the transform section and rotate it even more like that. If you're having issues like I am with the gimbal grabbing the background footage, sometimes it's easier to just work like that anyway. And then I'll scale the whole thing down a bit as well. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is grab this, right click it, go to blending mode, and select multiply. And that just kind of multiplies it, makes it look like it's part of the background footage. And I'm going to really just leave it like that. That looks pretty cool. So now what we have to do is decide where we want this bullet hole to start. And I want it to start right about that frame. So I'm just going to grab it and slide it over so that it's not present on the frame before. But then if you kind of play through it, it appears there on that frame, and we have a nice bullet hole, which is awesome. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is drag in a nice burst of bullet hit to kind of go over top of that. So I'm going to go into my bullet hits. I'm just going to grab the first ground hit, number 1, and drag and drop, and we're basically going to do everything that we just did with the texture. We're just going to apply to this hit. So I'm going to change it to a 3D layer, and I'm going to parent it to the ground null, and then using the 3D gimbal, I'll push it into 3D space, and then position it so it's right. This sort of debris falling right there is right over our bullet hole, which is right here. It's kind of camouflage there. So position it so it really looks like that part of the concrete actually got shot. And again, you don't have to do the textures, the bullet hole textures. I just like to do it. It makes it look a lot more realistic. You have something to go off of. So now I'm going to convert this. I'll go to the blending mode and set this to screen. I find that's, for this particular footage, that was kind of the best option. You might want to choose a different option for yours. I'm going to position that right over the bullet hole so it looks like it's actually coming up out of that hole in the ground where the bullet actually made contact, right about there. So now the effect we have, the hole hits, and then you have the debris spraying up in the air, and then it lands on the ground, and because we've tracked our footage, it just stays evenly, perfectly matched. And that's awesome. I mean, that's so cool, and we barely did any work at all, right? So that's the whole process. Other than that, you really just repeat everything we just did. So if you want to do a hit on the wall, let's say we have one hit right above here, right where I'm kind of ducking in the shot. So I'm going to grab another texture, and I'm going to grab an asphalt one. Yeah, that might look cool. And I'll just throw that right in there. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to convert this to a 3D layer. And I'm going to parent this to the wall null. And push it in 3D space, if I can. And then I'll just scale it down. It's not going to be that noticed anyway. And then position it accordingly, like so. And scale it down. That looks pretty good. And really, you could just leave it at normal. Let's see what multiply looks like if I set the blending mode to multiply. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we have a nice bullet hole there in our wall. And we're going to do the same thing, only we're going to grab one of those bursts that's the front. So we have all these ground bursts here. I'm going to grab a wall hit front, and we can see what this looks like. If we play it, you can see this is perfect for the camera being front on. There's kind of a burst and everything flies out toward the camera. So it already looks three-dimensional. So we can drag and drop that in there. We're going to do the same thing, 3D layer, parent it to the wall node. I don't have to even push it in much because I like this to be kind of big. We do have to decide where we want those hits to take place. So I'm going to kind of drag them over in our scene. Start right about there. And now, again, I'm just going to set this top layer, the blending mode, I'm going to set this to screen. and then position it so that it's kind of hard to see here because it's pretty bright, but I want it to be right over top of the bullet hole right there, so that when you play it, you see the hole hit and then the kind of the shrapnel and everything falling down, which looks really cool. I think we could scale this up a bit, so I'm going to grab that, scale it up. So I like to really see that kind of powder puff cloud there. I'm gonna offset these so that the cloud kind of starts, the bullet hit starts before you see that texture. Maybe just one frame. And I'm gonna set, since it's hard to see this, I'm gonna set this wall hit. I'll put the blending mode to add so we can see it a little bit brighter. For the ground one, screen worked really well, but I kind of like add. There's kind of that sharp, explosive look you would get if you were shooting that concrete wall, which I don't recommend doing. Could get your eye shot out or something. All right, so now we have two hits in sequence. You have the ground hit and then the wall hit, and debris kind of flies out. One thing I did for my final comp on the wall hit, I used this the front on hit along with one of the wall side hits. So you can see there's a lot of these great wall hits that spray out to the side, and they give a lot of variation to that as well. So I think I'll do that. I'll grab one of those and drag it in and drop it just to kind of give like maybe it disrupted some of the concrete in the wall, the structure of the wall, and shot out some of that debris to the side. And it kind of tells a story there, makes it look like the debris is kind of chasing the guy running through the scene. I say the guy, it's me, but I am a guy, so I guess that works. All right, I'll set the blending mode of this to screen, and we can check this out. You just want to make sure that the starting point is consistent, and it's not. Let me turn off that one so we can kind of match these up here. I'll position this like so, just to make it look like that's kind of coming out of that bullet hole again. Want consistency. And again, you can see how easy the stock footage is to just add things together and make it look awesome without having to do any work whatsoever. So we have the hit, the debris kind of spraying out to the side, that nice cloud, and then the shrapnel kind of falling down, which looks really cool. Awesome. And honestly, that's it. You could do some, depending on the footage you have, you could drop in a curves layer or a hue saturation node to color correct these. I think I'm going to change the blending mode of this back to screen. The add is a little too much. So screen, you can't quite see as much, but when it's played back in real speed, I know right now we're working with a lot of lag, it'll look cool when it's played back in regular speed. Now, one thing I did do, I see this this little electric box here, this outlet. In my final comp, as I sort of ran past it, I had a bullet hit the outlet and kind of shoot sparks out at as electrical. So the bullet hits it, it's going to kind of have a small little explosion. So I'll show you how I did that. First of all, I'm going to decide what frame I want that hit to take place, and we'll just pick right about here. And we're going to repeat all the same steps. I moved my thing there. Whoops. There we go. So we're going to repeat all the same steps here. So I'm going to first of all grab one of the texture hits, and I'm going to use I'll use the metal hit, and I'll grab one of the shotgun. You can see there's just everything you could ever need here for these textures. I'm going to grab this aluminum entry 3 and drag and drop it onto our scene here. I'm going to, again, 3D layer, parent it to the wall node, and drag it in, and I'll just scale it down. And we will position this right over top of that little electrical outlet. And then make it so it's, kind of bullet size, but also kind of just like general damage to this thing. Because maybe the bullet hit it at one angle and then went straight through it or something. You can really get creative with what the story is here with this damage. But I'm going to go ahead and set the blending mode to multiply. And you can see that really looks like that already. Just by doing that, we have some nice damage there, which looks great. So now we're going to go ahead and do the hit, and then we'll add in some sparks, and I'll show you how I did that. So I'm going to grab another one of the bullet hits, and we'll use one of these front-on ones here, the wall hits. Let's see about this one. I mean, you can't really go wrong with these because, I mean, they're all so cool. Okay, same thing with the wall hit. Convert to 3D layer, parent it to the wall node. And I'm going to set the blending mode of this to screen. And where are we? Okay, I got off here with our frame. I apologize. We had it right. Oh no, it just moved. Okay, let's fix this. Move this back over. Okay. And now we'll move this little explosion back into place here. Like so. Okay. So hopefully that looks like it's starting. We don't want to just start on my leg. So we'll move a frame. Have them both start right about there. That'll be good. Let's go another frame or two. You want to offset them so it kind of looks like, you know, someone's actually shooting. So you don't want them to just all start at the same time. That's not fun. Okay, we play this, we see the hit, and then the explosion. Okay, perfect. That's what we want right there. Alright, but like I said, this is an electrical component, so there would definitely be some sparks or something. And where do we get sparks? Well, ActionVFX has a brand new spark and ember collection, which is just dead awesome. So I'm going to use one of those files. I'm going to use this sideways embers, which is basically just kind of sparks shooting up from the right side, close up. And that's perfect for what we need. So I'm going to grab that and drop it in. We're going to do everything we've been doing, with the exception that we got to reverse this bad boy because it's all coming from the right side, but we want to kind of spray out in the other direction. So I'm going to go to the transform settings, and underneath the rotation, or first of all, we got to set this to a 3D layer. So I'm going to 3D layer that, and then the rotation, I'm going to, on the y-axis, I'm going to go rotate it by 180 degrees, and that'll flip that. And then I'm going to set this parented to the wall node. And then we can just scale this down, holding down shift so we keep the aspect ratio. And I'm going to grab that and position it so that it looks like it's coming out of the damage that we've created. So just position, working with too many layers here. We set the beginning where we want it, so it looks like it's part of that whole hit. You might have to jump a few frames. In fact, I'm going to trim a few frames off of this sparks and embers because you kind of have to wait a few frames before anything starts happening, and you want the reaction to be, you know, right away. So I'm going to do like that and then position it accordingly. That's looking pretty good. Okay, and now you can kind of see an issue with this. There's kind of that sharp line. That's no good. We don't want that. So what I want to do is just grab a simple pen tool and create a mask that kind of funnels the shape so that it creates a finer point where the start of these embers will be, and then we can kind of mask out the rest of it so there's a more kind of defined area where we're seeing those sparks. So now we'll go into the mask, and underneath the mask settings, I'll set the feather and just kind of crank it up so that there's no noticeable edge there. But you'll be able to kind of more distinctly see where those sparks are shooting out of, which is awesome. And now I'm going to set this, I'll set the blend mode of this to add, since there's already an alpha channel. The add makes it look really cool. And we can kind of see that more defiantly. You can see it clear. So the effect we got a bullet hit there, a bullet hit on the wall shooting debris, and then a bullet hit with some damage shooting our electrical component, and sparks flying into the air. And really, that's the base of the whole sequence that I created as far as the bullet hits go. I just repeated these same concepts, added some of the ground explosions all along here, did more with the wall, added more of the dust and debris flying up, adding more sparks, definitely from the new Sparks and Embers collection. But hopefully from this little example, you can see just how easy it is to add these bullet hole hits and effects into your scenes using some of the ActionVFX stock footage. And then to top it off, they have amazing sound effects. So I took my Final Comp back into Premiere, which is my editing software of choice, and I added some of the sweet sound effects. They have just perfect bullet hole effects and bullet hits, as well as the gunshots and all of that. You would want to definitely hit motion blur on all of these and control some of the motion blur for your Final Comp. That'll just make it look more like it's actually part of your scene and the footage you shot. And again, all of this is to taste. You can go back through, add some different color grading to help it blend. I already added some color to my shot before I brought it into After Effects, just so we could kind of get a better idea of that feel that we're looking for. But that's it for this tutorial. That's how to add ActionVFX bullet hits into your shot. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope it was useful to really see how quick and easy it is to just knock out these effects. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next VFX tutorial. And in the meantime, remember, if you're going to make a movie, make it epic. See you next time.